Lithuania's crucial idea and impetus of the 20th century was the creation and consolidation of a national state. The value and dramatism of this ambition was conditioned by the fact that this objective had to be achieved on the intersection of Western and Eastern civilizations through mobilization of the strongly denationalized society for common action. Its transformation into a national civil society and efforts to reinforce it amounted to a revolution of the modern times, comparable by importance to that which uplifted the Grand Duchy of Lithuania in the old ages. The years of occupation between 1940 and 1990 was a highly complicated period from the point of view of society's civil awareness. In the Soviet Union, ideology and reality were not equivalent. Infants of coercion were born under the shield of nice words. According to the constitutions of the USSR, all the nations are equal and have equal rights, and they brotherly cooperate and prosper equally. Soviet socialist republics are sovereign, only without citizens. They are home to the citizens of all the Soviet Union, where each citizen of the Lithuanian SSR is also the citizen of the USSR, and it is home to USSR patriots. While the members of the Lithuanian nation who resisted the regime were obliterated after the war, others were forced to live in obedience to the order that the occupants had established. Here reference is made not to active collaborators, that is, party and Soviet actors who used to execute Moscow's will without concessions in the Stalinist period. We are speaking here about the passive ones, that is, those who, in order to subsist and to make ends meet, even reluctantly agreed to live according to the requirements of the occupational regime. Inherently, many did not side with the occupant, but only few resolved for action, creating an underground organization, raising the national flag or otherwise. Personal dualism became a common phenomenon, speaking of something and doing something else. This was expressed in mass legal nihilism, such as the aim to evade the law, and the so-called antisocial behavior, such as depredation, alcoholism, and the like. The revolts of 1956 in Hungary and 1968 in Czechoslovakia to a great extent influenced the social maturity of Lithuanians. Following the suppression of the first, it became clear that nobody was going to let anyone leave the Soviet Union constructed by Stalin, whereas the second one also revealed that Moscow did not find even socialism with a human face acceptable. Lithuania then responded with its first bold and globally heard anti-occupational action, Romas Kalantas self-immolation in Kaunas in 1972. This was the year of the breakthrough, which triggered the society's differentiation into underground resistance, most vividly expressed in the preparation and publication of illegal literature. Katalikų bažnyčios kronika, the Catholic Church Chronicle, which appeared in 1972, and prohibited organizations such as the Lithuanian Helsinki Group, founded in 1976 to support the International Helsinki Agreement of 1975, became its banner bearers. These activities provoked the persecution and court proceedings with respect to dissidents, new deportations, prisons, forced treatment at mental departments, and in many cases also political murders. The resistance was first publicly demonstrated when commemorating the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact initiated by the Lithuanian Freedom League in 1987.
Dūstančią TSRS ekonominę ir politinę sistemą atnaujinti imperijos politinis elitas pavedė Mikhailui Gorbačiovui.
The empire's political elite delegated the task of renewing the USSR's economic and political system to Mikhail Gorbachev, who started the epoch of the so-called reorganization, or perestroika. Lithuania saw the gradual emergence of different social groups and organizations offering co-projects to reorganize the system. The most numerous organization with the most significant contribution was the Lithuanian Reformation movement Sąjūdis, founded on the 2nd and 3rd of June 1988, which in 1990 won the majority in the election to the USSR Supreme Council. The majority of Sąjūdis founders were intellectuals, who little by little involved increasing numbers of participants into the movement. The Sąjūdis policy was based on the method of taking over positions from the Communist Party, which was tested during the Soviet times, the so-called step-by-step policy. By declaring their loyalty to the regime for implementing reorganization, Sąjūdis participants used to trespass the prohibited boundaries, protected and legitimized the new space of freedom, and then took the next step. The goal, which nobody spoke about but knew very well, was independence.
Nepriklausoma Lietuvos valstybė atkurta 1990 m. kovo 11 d. Šis žingsnis sukrėtė tarybinę.
The independent Lithuanian state was restored on the 11th of March 1990. This step shocked the Soviet Empire and triggered its disintegration and the collapse of the global socialist system. It was not long before the actors of the Lithuanian independence movement had to ask themselves the question, we are independent, but from whom? Answers were determined by the occupation, externally independent from the Soviet Union, later from Russia, and internally from the communists and KGB agents. Since these had transfused the whole society, whereas the USSR had transfused the entire economy, and all this was shrouded in the old thinking, attempts to enshrine the state's independence soon became a struggle for power in the state between the so-called patriots and communists. The reinforcement of the nation's sovereign and creative capacities was given a back seat.
Tautos suverenių ir kūrybinių galių stiprinimas buvo nustumtas į antrą planą.
The 1992 elections returned the former communists to power. Envisaging that the struggle for power might be long and not necessarily successful, the so-called patriots initiated, while the former communists practically implemented the movement towards Euro-Atlantic structures, NATO and the European Community. The European Community, which prior to the collapse of the socialist system declared the economic unification of Europe, reorganized into political European Union. Whereas following the approval of the EU constitution, it postulated the building of a unitary state, including the prospects of a single European citizenship. This is how Lithuanians entered a new international dependence, which required no longer national, but rather regional or international or Euro-allied patriotism. The catchphrase "Be Lithuanian" was thus replaced by "Be European." The young generations gladly supported this. Having signed the EU accession treaty in the early 21st century, that is in 2004, Lithuania commenced its new period of historical development, which, according to its geopolitical orientation, replicates the processes in the former Lithuanian-Polish Union. But this is developing no longer only on the territory of the Republic of both nations. In addition, it is developing on the basis of the national values of the Lithuanian heritage, nurtured in the course of the 20th century by the caste of peasants rather than by the nobility. The Lithuanian patriotism that will form the environment of European civil awareness will determine what Lithuania and the Lithuanian nation will look like in the future, because civil awareness is love for the state, while patriotism is love for the homeland. If the state is not identical to homeland, neither should civil awareness and patriotism be the same. The history of today is more alive than most of us tend to think.